So if USDA streamlined their verification process, how much could that save, and what would that bring our total for the series to?
David, well, this is a big one. I have to admit that I am skeptical that we will be able to get all 80 programs and different agencies involved in those different programs on the same page. But if we are able to do that, or if Congress forces them to do that, this will be big. This will be $554 billion in savings for the taxpayers. And so that nearly doubles the savings we have talked about already so far in this series to bring us up to $1,103.5 billion. So we're now more than halfway to our goal of $2 trillion. So we're making significant progress.
So that verification process, and that would be across multiple agencies.
It would be across all of those 80 programs and all the different agencies that run them.
I mean, that's more than $100 billion.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, I'm David Fromm, and welcome to the American Potential Podcast. This episode will be another in our Big Ideas for Smaller Government series, which is our version of Doge. Today, we're talking about the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA, and how they have spent taxpayer money, and we'll suggest some cuts to reach our goal of cutting $2 trillion overall. USDA was founded in 1862, right in the middle of the Civil War, when President Abraham Lincoln signed a piece of legislation and called it the People's Department. Well, back then, most Americans were farmers, and the country needed help modernizing agriculture to feed a growing population. Over the years, the USDA has expanded beyond farming and now oversees everything from food safety and nutrition programs to rural development and conservation efforts. So, let's welcome back Jeremiah Mosteller, who is Policy Director for Americans for Prosperity. Welcome back, Jeremiah, our favorite guest.
Yes, David, I'm so excited to be here and to continue this conversation, and in particular talk about the USDA. I mean, I grew up in a farming community, and so this is near and dear to my heart.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Well, I think I think a lot of people tend to think of the USDA, just with positive feelings, like, oh, agriculture. We have great associations with certainly current farmers. You would think of the family farm, and then just our heritage as, agriculture throughout the last centuries. It's kind of idyllic and all, but USDA does spend a lot of money and oversees a lot of things, which I think we'll kind of discover here. So, since USDA started in 1862, how big has the department grown over the decades?
Yeah, David. Well, I mean, as you said in your opening comments, it has grown beyond farming. And so I think it's helpful, like I like to do if I go to the whiteboard, so I can showcase to people how big it is and all the different things that it does.
Did you say go to the whiteboard?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go.
So, David, the USDA's budget, because we always like to talk about how much are they spending? $437 billion. So that's a lot. That's a good amount of money. That's not a small sum there. But beyond just farming, which they do still work on through the Farm Services Agency, or FSA, and they also oversee, as you said, the Food and Nutrition Service, but they also deal with like rural development, like you said. So under that barrier, there are multiple agencies. So you have the Rural Housing Service, you have the Rural Utilities Service, and you have the Rural Business Cooperative Service. As with all of these agencies, the number of like sub-agencies and offices is just large. So with USDA specifically, there are 18 agencies that make up the department, as well as 11 other offices that make up the entirety of this department.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of a lot of different agencies. Oh, 18 agencies. That's a lot. So in your research, you found out that USDA has a grant program to help with building a certain type of building.
Yeah.
What does that grant program focus on?
Yeah, so this is part of the Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program. It's a mouthful, like, of other things.
All right, say that again. Community
Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program.
Sounds like a government program.
Yeah, it does. So typically this program funds things related to farming, like airport hangars that farmers may use for their planes to spread pesticide, even things like remote education facilities so that universities can run technical education programs for farmers, or even things like directly connected to farming, like greenhouses. But what we've actually seen is that the agency has interpreted this authorization they have to just cover so many different things. And it extends even to gels. So we know that they have spent $365 million over the course of the program to build or expand 53 jails in 21 states.
Well, how does building a jail have anything to do with farming or agriculture or land management?
David, that's a really good question, because I think to kind of step back a second, and I'm going to read this to make sure I get this specifically right. The USDA says that the agency's mission is to keep America's farmers and ranchers in business and to ensure the nation's meat, poultry, and egg products are safe, wholesome, and properly labeled. Mm-hmm. But when you look at this particular program, the agency doesn't even try and argue that it's trying to meet that mission. They say that the program is instead focused on providing affordable funding to facilities that encourage development in primarily rural areas. And I think primarily is carrying a lot of weight there as well. Primarily rural means that sometimes they're funding things in urban and suburban areas. Mm-hmm. And so it seems like this particular program, not only is it funding gels, which doesn't really seem like it helps agriculture, but generally the program itself, that's not even the goal of the program. They've interpreted it so broadly that it's just an expansive program that is going to so many different types of facilities.
Well, it kind of seems to me, this is familiar as we've talked about so many of these agencies and just, observing government over a number of decades. There's just a creep that a lot of government agencies and other things associated with the government really tend to be subject to, or they kind of spawn it. I think that sometimes incentives are misaligned, because if you're gonna, if you want your budget to grow and you want to go do more things, even if, and a lot of times that would be good things that politicians might like or the public might like, that's your incentive to keep pushing into other areas. But that's the opposite of limited government, which I think is what we would like to see. I mean, somehow, you read the USDA's, is their mission or whatever, their kind of value prop. That doesn't involve jails. I don't know how. And the other thing would be, do you feel like there's some interpretation that anything rural tends to get associated with the Department of Agriculture?
I mean, I think that tends to be the case. And I want to be clear to listeners, I'm not opposed to us building jails. I'm a pro public safety guy. Sure. We need to be supporting our criminal justice system and ensuring the rule of law. But I think in this instance, if the argument is hypothetically that having a jail in a community increases employment in that community, which increases the customers for farmers, that argument could be made for any employer, public or private.
Right.
And so we could be using this to fund the local McDonald's, for example. And yet again, we would have examples of government money flowing to private corporations under that justification if this mission continues to expand more and more.
So something else that the USDA is doing is helping other countries with fertilizer. So how are they helping, and how much does that cost?
Yeah, so the name of the initiative is the Fertilize Right Initiative. It's kind of catchy, actually. I kind of like it. And they talk about the 4 R's of using fertilizer. It's the right source, the right rate, the right time, and the right place for that location and that particular crop. This is part of what the USDA has built in they call climate hubs. So they have a variety of what they call climate hubs at USDA. This one is specifically in the International Climate Hub. And so what this program is actually doing is funding this educational program internationally in other countries to train farmers and other agricultural entities on how to use fertilizer the right way. And what they mean by right is in the most limited, most effective way in this case, based on what you can kind of gather from the 4 R's. So far, the program has spent $20 million, and it has launched in 4 countries: Brazil, Colombia, Pakistan, and Vietnam.
I mean, it just seems like, just from a common sense perspective, it doesn't make sense that our Department of Agriculture teach people in other countries. I mean, we have international departments, Department of State, other programs that provide a lot of, funding to different organizations that, already do this work. Yeah. So it just seems redundant and very odd to me.
Well, and I think it's also worth just calling out for listeners. The USDA is the same agency that says that its mission is to ensure the success of our domestic farmers and agricultural industry. Yeah. So they are essentially educating other countries on how to be a better competitor to our farmers.
Well, I mean, I know Brazil is a significant competitor in agricultural products to American farmers, and they're in the same hemisphere. So, yeah, that seems to be a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So, all right. So coming back to the United States, what are some of the different health and welfare programs that the USDA administers?
Yeah, it is a super, super long list, David. So kind of starts with some that folks are probably generally aware of or kind of know about from just average life. So you have SNAP, or the food stamps program that folks have probably heard a lot about. You also have the Women, Infant, and Children Nutrition Program, which you'll see in the grocery store, called WIC or EBT, that you see talked about in the grocery store. But there's also other programs like the School Free and Reduced Lunch and Breakfast Program, which provides breakfast and lunch to about 30 million children every single day across the country. So that's about 10% of our population that receives that benefit. But you also have a similar program that does the same thing in daycares and adult care centers. So it's massive. Overall, I mean, there are just so many more at the USDA, but that's in addition to some that we've already talked about at other agencies and departments, but in others, so like at HHS, you have TANF and Medicaid. At HUD, you have housing assistance programs. So across the federal government, there are 80 total welfare and healthcare assistance programs across the entire federal government. So that's a lot of programs.
I mean, some of those USDA programs are pretty familiar. Some like SNAP or WIC or EBT, the school lunches program. And, and I think as a society, we've probably made a decision that we want, especially children, but we want people to have food.
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
A first world nation, we want people to be well fed. We have better outcomes when people are well fed and all that. So we made a decision on that. But I think you're right in highlighting that there's so many programs out there that are, across these different agencies. I mean, with so many of these programs, how do we find an efficient way to monitor them?
Yeah, so that's the problem, David. Each of these 80 programs has its own specific eligibility criteria, its own vetting and approval process. There is no coordination, even across individual programs within the same sub-agency. We're not even talking the same department, but the same sub-agency. So every American, when they're down on their luck, let's say they've lost their job or there's a traumatic event in their family, they're having to go through this maze of eligibility and approval processes to access the help that they might need for a short amount of time to get back on their feet. And there's 80 of them, and there's no coordination. And that also prevents us from being able to take a close look at these programs and identify, was there duplication, or is someone fraudulently taking money from these programs, because each is its own individual silo. And so that's very problematic. And that's why AFP has been arguing for change in these systems.
Yeah, I mean, it seems ripe for misuse. And we know that that's been, that's a fact. We always go back to, and it seems like we have the same conversation sometimes about these agencies and federal departments, that the idea of incentives and motivations. I mean, if you're running one of these programs, your incentive isn't to reduce your budget or to say, hey, that other program does this better, we should scale down the amount that we're spending here. That decreases your power, your budget. So, I mean, everybody's kind of competing against one another. So, you really do hope that, a strong executive, that, Congress really providing the right kind of oversight could say, well, hey, we're going to enforce efficiency here and find without, I think there's a way to keep people well fed and well cared for and still reduce a lot of the, the wasteful funding. So how are states and maybe other countries kind of addressing this?
Yeah, sadly, there's not a lot of good models out there, but I have two that I'll highlight for you today. The first is a model that's happening in about 10 counties in Texas in the Brazos Valley. There is a nonprofit there that is collaborating with the government. So, of course, innovation is coming from the private sector, as you would expect, sadly, not the government sector, where there's an organization called Project Unity. And so what they have built essentially across these 10 counties is one-stop shops where individuals can come when they need assistance, and they will actually walk them through a process that determines eligibility for all 80 of these programs at the same time. So now the individuals still have to go apply and get approved to those programs, but it's helping them know, like, hey, which of these 80 do me and my family qualify for whenever we need help today? And they're able to figure that out all in one-stop shop rather than having to call each of these 80 agencies to get a different answer. So I think that's an example kind of domestically of something that's working well. But if we kind of zoom out and look internationally, Estonia, yes, the country of Estonia is actually the gold star example of someone doing this right. And so what they have built out is actually an e-verification process that you go through as a citizen or resident of Estonia, and then you receive essentially an identification card that is a combo of an ID and a credit card. So it has a chip in it, you have a PIN, and then all of your data is in one isolated system. And I'll explain in a second why that's important. That all of the 600 different government programs then talk to, and your eligibility is determined in that one system, and that information is then accessible by all these other programs. So you have to go through one process to access all 600 of those programs. So it's very streamlined. And so we would like to see that replicated here, not only because it would make it easier for taxpayers and citizens, but also if you think about it from a privacy perspective, right now your private information is held in 80 different databases, many of which are probably vulnerable to attack every single day. And so that's a big civil liberties concern. And so we would like to see us do a similar thing here where all of those 80 systems, your data is removed from all the 80 systems and put into one system that the agencies can then access. So that means we only have to focus on defending the data in one system rather than 80 separate systems. And so that would save lots of taxpayer money, but also be better for national security and the safety and privacy of your data.
Wow. I mean, that just seems like a no-brainer. You know, it seems like, you know, when we look at Doge with the guy like Elon Musk leading it, like it seems right up their alley. I mean, that's not even reducing benefits necessarily. That's strictly streamlining and making something more efficient, safer, and then it would also save us money probably on benefits because we see the redundancies and all that. That's fabulous. Yeah, keep the good ideas coming.
Of course.
All right, so we have a running tally of the cuts that we would like to see happen as part of our Doge process. So where are we at for our total cuts? So if USDA streamlined their verification process, how much could that save, and what would that bring our total for the series to?
David, well, this is a big one. I have to admit that I am skeptical that we will be able to get all 80 programs and different agencies involved in those different programs on the same page. But if we are able to do that, or if Congress forces them to do that, this will be big. This will be $554 billion in savings for the taxpayers. And so that nearly doubles the savings we have talked about already so far in this series to bring us up to $1,103.5 billion. So we're now more than halfway to our goal of $2 trillion. So we're making significant progress.
So that verification process, now that would be across multiple agencies.
It would be across all of those 80 programs and all the different agencies that run them.
I mean, that's more than $100 billion than the current USDA budget.
Correct.
Annual budget.
Correct.
Wow, that's some exciting reform. Yeah, that's amazing.
And again, it's efficient use of the money. We're not saying cut any of these programs. We're not even talking about that level, which those programs do need to be looked at to see if there's duplication. We're just saying like, hey, let's build a single system for efficiency purposes.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think those are things that taxpayers love to see, because I think it just drives people nuts when they see their own money being wasted. Yeah. And I think Americans are pretty kind-hearted and generally don't mind their money being used to help less fortunate folks who fell on hard times. Heck, a lot of people have to take advantage of it, unfortunately, at different times. So, in particular over the last 4 years. So, but I think people really are open to that and just want to know that it's being done responsibly, that somebody's got an eye on the bank or on the till, so. Well, so if our listeners would like to share ideas that they have, additional ideas of where things should be cut, where can they go to do that?
Yeah, so they should go to dogeidea.com to submit those ideas. The idea we just talked about actually came from an average American who proposed it to one of our partners and said, have you ever thought about investigating what this could look like? I heard about Estonia doing this. Could we do this in America?
Wow.
And so then that partner shared it with us. And so it's the perfect example of like, hey, an average American thought about this idea, proposed it to someone, and now it's being elevated to members of Congress as a solution.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's why we believe in bottom-up solutions.
Mm-hmm.
The people closest to the problems or the issues are the ones who usually have the best solutions. So that's great. Well, Jeremiah, as always, thanks so much for coming on, for giving us tons of great information, stories that we can then go use, and keep up the good fight for you and your team. Yeah,
David, I'm excited because, like I said, we're halfway there. So we've got some more work to do, but we're making some progress.
All right, we won't pop the champagne yet.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, man. Well, hey, folks, if you like this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.